Hi friends, welcome to Get Excited, It's the News. First show, kind of. Last week was like an announcement and also maybe a little bit of therapy for me. So we're going to call this one like the first actual official show of it. So before I get into the actual show, a disclaimer. This is going to be a fact-based news show. And yes, I'm going to call it a news show because if we can call hot dog sandwiches, we can kind of call anything. But mostly, I'm going to call it a news show because I want you to know that I'm taking this seriously. Hot dog joke aside. I'm not going to mess around with this because if even one person comes here to be informed, I want them to be well informed. And calling it a news show is a reminder that when you are doing the news, your job is to educate. And that's what I'm going to try and do here. And here's what I mean by fact-based. I want you to have fun while watching it, so you'll get a little bit of my personality and yeah, some opinion, but when it's an opinion, you'll know because I'll call it out. I'll never tell you my opinion on something is a fact because facts are facts. So the facts presented in these episodes will come from nonpartisan places as often as possible, and I'll double check them. So you can go to kimmoffat.com, click on the show, and you'll be able to find a transcript of every single episode, plus the sources I cite within the episode. Is this a lot of work? Yes. Do I imagine it's for like one person? Probably. But I'm tired of feeling like we can't have a conversation based on facts. So congratulations, one viewer, you're getting those facts. So now that that's over, let's talk about the news, starting with a deep dive. The big story this week is, of course, President Trump's impeachment in the House of Representatives for incitement of an insurrection. As a reminder, on January 6th, rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol, resulting in 6 deaths, including 2 Capitol police officers. So let's get the opinion part out of the way. Look at that. It's got a little label and everything. I do believe that President Trump was correctly charged. I don't think he's the only one, but I think that words matter, and especially when they come from the President of the United States. So yes, I agree with the charges. That's it. That's the opinion part, done. Look at that, label's gone. So look, I know that I'm not breaking news by telling you that the president was impeached, but I thought that maybe it might be helpful if we went over a little bit of what an impeachment is, how we got here, what happens next, and then also talked about the 25th and 14th Amendments. So what's an impeachment? Impeachment was actually created in England, but brought over by the framers as part of the checks and balances section of the Constitution. In the Federalist Papers, number 65, Hamilton wrote that impeachment is, quote, a national inquest into the conduct of public men, end quote, on a matter of public trust. So it happens in 2 parts. The first part happens in the House of Representatives. When a member of the House believes that a member of the federal government has committed an impeachable offense, they bring their articles up to the Speaker of the House. Currently, our Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi. The articles of impeachment are signed off on by the Speaker and then brought to the House floor for a vote. If the majority of House reps vote to impeach, boom, done, impeached, end of story. So that's where we're at right now. Trump has been impeached in the House of Representatives. Now, if you're thinking, hey, I feel like we just did this, you are not wrong, my friend. In December of 2019, Trump was impeached in the House of Representatives for soliciting foreign interference in the 2020 presidential election. He then became the 3rd president ever to be impeached in the House of Representatives. With this impeachment, he becomes the 1st president to have ever been impeached twice. Here's the deal, though. The House is just step 1. Next, it goes to the Senate, and the Senate is where the trial actually takes place. Chief Justice John Roberts from the Supreme Court, not to drop names, will be sworn in, and then he'll turn around and swear in all 100 senators who will serve as jurors in the case. There are some, I think, kind of cool rules that happen now, but for the most part, it works like any other court case, with the House working as prosecution, and in this case, President Trump serving as the defendant. Afterwards, the Senate goes to vote. Now, you need a 2/3 vote to convict within the Senate, so it'll take 67 senators signing off to convict. However, if the House doesn't get 67 senators to vote to convict, nothing happens. That's how we got to where we are right now, because the last time Trump was impeached, he was not convicted within the Senate. If you're not convicted in the Senate, it's like the whole thing never happened. Except that's not totally true. Nothing actually happens if you're not convicted within the Senate but still impeached in the House. Like, there's no actual consequences. But to be clear, the House just doesn't randomly impeach people. To date, they've only impeached 21 people ever. Ever. This list includes 3 U.S. presidents, 1 Secretary of War, 1 U.S. Senator, 2 Associate Justices, and 13 judges. 13 judges, that's a majority of the percentage. Now, for a few reasons, the Senate will not be taking up this case before Trump is out of office. Could they? Yes, but they've already said they won't, so they won't. However, even though he'll already be out of office, a conviction within the Senate does have consequences. So the first one is that Trump would never be able to hold public office ever again. But there are other consequences as well. He could lose his pension, He could lose his paid government staff. He's got $1 million a year budget for security and travel, $500,000 for the First Lady's security and travel as well. So there's things like that he can lose as well. These are all things that are listed in the Former President's Act of 1958, which states that a president is due all of these things, and I assume more, unless they are removed from office under Section 4, Article 2 of the Constitution. So basically, unless they're impeached. However, this would both be the first time that a president is convicted of a crime within the Senate and the first time it happened after they were out of office. So, history? In all this talk about impeachments, you may have also heard about 2 constitutional amendments being tossed around this week. So let's dive into those as well, starting with the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment basically states that when there's a vacancy within the presidency, the vice president steps up as acting president. This can happen if the president dies, as was the case with Vice President Johnson becoming president after the JFK assassination. It can also happen if the president is just unavailable. This happened when George W. Bush had a colonoscopy and Vice President Cheney stepped in with acting presidential powers. But another way that it can happen is if the president is deemed unfit to serve office. In this case, the vice president and the majority of the president's cabinet would have to sign off on a letter, send it to the House and Senate, and then that would immediately give the vice president presidential powers. This week, House Speaker Pelosi did formally ask VP Mike Pence to invoke the 25th. He said no, and there we go. This week, you may have also heard people talk about Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Section 3 essentially states that if you swear an oath to protect the Constitution and then engage in an insurrection or rebellion against the same, or give an aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, you may not hold an office, civil or military, in the federal or state government ever again. So this would apply to people that took part in the insurrection or helped in any way. I would imagine as investigations continue, you're going to hear about this one a lot more, so now you know what it means. So there we go. Impeachment, the 14th Amendment, the 25th Amendment. We got through them all. All right. Other headlines. I don't know why I did excited voice. Some of these headlines are not good. For example, LA County will stop using Curative COVID tests after the FDA warned that they could give false negatives. Los Angeles is averaging almost 15,000 new cases and 240 deaths per day. So a false negative could be potentially devastating. Just a reminder to please go wash your hands today. Masks work. In Massachusetts, Laura's Law has been signed into action by Governor Baker. In 2018, Laura Beth Levis died while having an asthma attack outside of a Massachusetts hospital. She tried to get into the ER, but the door was locked. She was unable to find another open door before collapsing. Laura's Law, which her husband, Peter DeMarco, has been advocating for, establishes for the first time standards for signage, lighting, and security at the doors. Although hospitals will still have to follow COVID protocols for 6 months to a year after the state of emergency lifts, hopefully this new piece of legislation will prevent another death like Laura's. Disneyland has announced that they're ending their annual pass program. This sucks. While Disneyland has never said how many pass holders they have, it's estimated that the number is over 1 million. It was becoming a fairly untenable program. I know. I made it untenable. I added to that. Does this suck? Yes. Duh. But it sounds like they're using this as an opportunity to revamp the whole thing. Kind of like when Good Morning Miss Bliss became Saved by the Bell. So I know it's really hard, but try to stay positive. It's possible that the program that they're rolling out might even be better than what they've had before. I'm fine. I'm like so fine, you guys. I'm handling this so well. Finally, Sex and the City is getting a reboot. This time without Samantha, played by Kim Cattrall, who will not be joining the show. I actually don't know why. I don't know the show. I don't know it enough. But Get Excited, It's the News. It's where you come for news now. So that's the news. Now you know it. Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. If you have the day off, celebrate by looking for a safe way to volunteer in your community. Maybe it's working at a soup kitchen or helping to clean up a park. There's a Minecraft March on Washington. I only know like 2 of those 3 words. But they need volunteers, and that's something you can do safely from your home. There are a ton of volunteer opportunities if you're able to do so. If you go to KimMoffitt.com, click on the link to the show, and you'll be able to find some volunteer opportunities there. I'm also going to put Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from a Birmingham jail on there if you want to read that, because, opinion, I think everybody should read it at least once, if not once a year. And finally, because sometimes the news is a bummer, here's a little something to help cheer you up. So that's it. That's the news. We did it. If you go to KimMoffitt.com, click on the show, you'll be able to find links to everything I talked about here. Also, I am attempting to make this a podcast as well, just in case you want to hear the show, but don't necessarily want to have Instagram open. I get that. That's how I would be. So I'm making it essentially for me. So I'll keep you updated and let you know when that goes live. That's it. Have a great day, everybody.